proverb of only the farmer showing up for service. So I'll do a little bit more of the Reader's Digest version of the message today. Last week, I talked about the day after Christmas and what was going on. Ladies showed up to call Mary. The shepherds had gone. They'd gone all around, but what they did was tell everybody what they had witnessed and what they had seen and where they had found the child. So other people showed up, and there was a lot to be done. Well, and that was all in the just supposition. What really happened there? We don't have the exact details, but for one thing, Joseph went out and started looking for work. And we're going to turn right around and go back. They were going to stay for a while. He was a carpenter. He could find work. Plus, that was the town, his ancestral town. So he had relatives there. We know that eventually they did find a place to live, because when we go to the book of Matthew, the 2nd chapter, the Magi show up. We call them the 3 wise men. They had followed a star. They'd been astronomers. They saw a star that had just showed up, and they decided to go. They noticed it was moving through the air. Now, if you listen to some of the astronomers, and you listen to different people to try and knock everything off, it was a comet or something that they decided to follow so they could watch it better. When they got to Israel, they checked in with the political authorities and the religious authorities. They went to Herod and said, "Hey, where's the child born that's king of the Jews? We read some of your scriptures and we saw this." Well, Herod was a Roman. He didn't know anything about that stuff. So he started asking the religious leaders, and they said they didn't know if they wanted to tell him or not, because a king of the Jews rising up could mean that he would be overthrown, or there would be a war, at least a war, an uprising. He said, "Well, tell me." And finally they said, "The scriptures say he'll be born in Bethlehem, the city of David." Bethlehem wasn't a big town, but it wasn't a small village either. And they went over. And Herod said, "When you find him, let me know where he is." He went to, they visited, and they brought the 3 gifts. Who can tell me what the 3 gifts are?
Frankincense, gold, and myrrh.
Frankincense, gold, and myrrh. And then God spoke to them directly and said, "Don't go back and report. Go another way." So when they left, they went a different direction. God spoke to Joseph and said, "Get out here. Leave. Go to Egypt." Now, there was a significance to going to Egypt. Egypt was powerful enough back then that Rome had a presence there. But they had never defeated Egypt. It was not a Roman territory. It was a safe place to avoid Roman persecution. But in the wake, hundreds of young children were slain. Herod was so desperate to wipe out any opposition, rather than just watch and see what occurred or what was going to happen, he decided, "I've got to even get rid of the rumor," and destroy it. You know, today's world, sometimes people are so afraid of opposing view, so afraid of a disagreement that they want to disassociate or to totally get rid of any opposition. Now, the 3 gifts. gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Got it up here on the stand. Gold, well, pretty much all of us know about gold. It's kind of the standard for trade. It's the go-to standard for everybody wanting to be ready for the collapse of any financial institutions or anything else. So here's a tradesman. Yeah, he could provide for his family and stuff, but he didn't have a lot of money to take off on a several 100-mile trip. I figure between Cairo, Egypt, and Jerusalem is approximately 400 to 450 miles. When you're walking or riding, that's quite a ways. So he had to go there. He's in a new culture. And again, God had chosen as Jesus' earthly father a tradesman. If he'd been a politician or a teacher or an academic, if he had been a priest or a Levite, if he'd been any of those things, he might not have been able to provide for his family when he got to where he was going. Instead, God chose a tradesman who could use his trade to provide for quite a while. While they were there, well, also, when you're traveling, who here has ever experienced what they call Montezuma's revenge? What that is when you drink the local water, it does a very interesting things to your body. Frankincense is a medicinal oil that can be taken internally and helps with that. It's got several other aspects to it. There are several medicinal attributes to it, but that is one thing. And that, when you have that, sometimes it's called dysentery, it dehydrates you. Especially in the desert area, you don't want anything that's dehydrating you. So they besides the gold, they were provided with the medical support. The myrrh is also a medicinal oil, but it's never to be taken internally. It's an antiseptic. In the olden days, one of the number one causes of death was infection. You got some kind of a cut, and that was an infection. You know, today we get tetanus shots. And tetanus is a serious thing. I have a friend who, for quite a while, actually there were two people, one in my high school, one in my junior high, that got tetanus, and they both wound up with lockjaw for quite a while. But it's primarily from exposure to manure. These, around here, you get some of that exposure, but most of the people in the country don't get much of that these days. But they had an antiseptic during their travels, during their time, when it wasn't unusual. They had just what they needed for this trip. And then they came back. You know, they followed the news, and especially, you know, like I said, Rome never defeated Egypt, but they did have a presence there, and the news would come, Herod had passed. They decided to go back. Now, where are you going to go back to? Bethlehem? Well, that's where they had been for a while. But they'd also been settled in another part of Israel. Then they found out, well, that place isn't real friendly right now. So they followed the leading of the Holy Spirit and went to Galilee, a town called Nazareth. You know, we know these because it's written in the scriptural records. We know this story, but we look at something else. The wise men had access to some of the Jewish writings. So they knew that there was supposed to be an astronomical event to signal the birth of a Jewish king. And they followed that. So it was a fulfillment of prophecy. When the holy men, the priests, the Levites, all those were asked, where is he supposed to be born? Where is supposed to be born the King of the Jews? He said, in the city of David, Bethlehem, a fulfillment of prophecy. Also, there was discernment and guidance by the Holy Spirit that said, go over here, settle over here, it would be peaceful for you. It'd be a good place to grow up. It'd be a good place. And says he will be called a Nazarite. You know, we see for at least 3 of the major prophecies about Jesus were about the Messiah were fulfilled in this. Just this short period of time. I looked at some possible other ones that he had fled to a foreign land. That was a less obvious prophecy. But we see in this Joseph, Mary, were following the guidance. God didn't just say, okay, you got him, handle it. God continued to guide them in how they were to avoid murder. God provided them with what they needed to go into refuge. Provide them guidance when they got back. God doesn't want us to pray a sinner's prayer, to be baptized, to go to church, and that be it. That's it. You know? He wants us to have a relationship with Him every single day. When we opened our hearts to Christ, we opened ourselves to the indwelling of the Holy Spirit. If we listen, we may avoid catastrophe. If we listen, we may head toward blessing. Maybe a career change. Maybe a move. Physical move. But we need to stay open. And we remember that Christ came. We're going to have communion here in just a couple minutes. I'm going to bring the kids out this week. Just so a few of us, we can all just kind of circle up and have communion.